Well, good evening. This is Hound Dog Steve reporting on Sunday, the 7th of May. And, well, the results are in, and Monsieur Emmanuel Macron has won the presidency in the election, the French election. I'm surprised. I really did think that Marine Le Pen would come out a winner in this duel, and it's been a hard-fought battle. But of course, at the end of the day, it is very hard to predict outcomes, and of course, when you're over 3,000 miles away, it is difficult to get a real feel on the ground of what is going on. So what does this mean? I think actually that there is a real victory for Marine Le Pen here. And well, take a look at this article from 2012 and 2017, and you will see what I mean. So as you can see, Monsieur Emmanuel Macron has beat Marine Le Pen to become the President of France. And he is with the En Marche, or the Going Forward Movement Party, and he won quite comfortably. It was early polling suggested he was going to get 65%, and he got about 64.5% at the last count, and Marine Le Pen pulled about 34.5%. This is Marine Le Pen in the 2012 elections, and she came forward. She just missed going through to the second ballot, but she had pulled up from around about 13% to between 18 and 20% of the vote. Okay, so as you can see, Marine Le Pen has really pulled forward in the last two elections to go from 13% of the popular vote to from 18 to 20% of the popular vote in 2012, and now to go through to the second ballot and capture 34.5% of the vote. That is a staggering improvement. And so to all intents and purposes, she is a young woman, she is a bright woman, and I'm sure that she will run again in the next election, and I'm pretty certain that she will win the presidency. Now, of course, there is a downside of this for Macron. He may have won the presidency, but there are so many issues besetting France right now. As I said, the high unemployment, the immigration problem is huge, and it's actually a very funny dynamic in France because, you know, in many ways France has brought this problem upon themselves, and they wanted to have basically a slave working class that lived within France, but was not eligible for all of the benefits of a full citizen. And these people came from Morocco, Algeria, Libya, you know, the northern African states. And so when they arrived, they were given working permits and they were moved into housing projects, but never given full citizenship. And over the years, and we're talking decades now of this been going on, and so of course what's happened is that the original residents may have thought themselves lucky to be here, but subsequent generations have formed into blocks of young, angry Muslims who feel terribly slighted by France because they've never been able to become a full part of the country. Whether they would have integrated if they'd been made a full part of the country, we will never know, because that actually didn't happen. And so really this is a backlash from all of those people, all of those generations who have never really been allowed to become a part of France. And now an awful lot of those have been naturalized, and so in come the immigrants. Now they're mingling with all of these people. They move into the enclaves for safety or for friendship, and it is leading to terrible consequences. It's just basically overloading the system. There's a lot of anger there. There's a lot of hostility. You may have seen the pictures of the Calais tent city that was torn apart by police. Well, where did all those migrants go to? They had to go somewhere. Whether they're sleeping under bridges or whether they've climbed into drains and they're living in the sewers and the tunnels that run beneath the city. Who knows? But they had to go somewhere. Just getting rid of the tent city doesn't actually mean that you have resolved the problem. Okay, so that is a huge issue which is burgeoning. There is the debt issue, which is also a burgeoning issue. All of these European countries are terribly in debt, and it is just catching up with them so quickly. And when you mix in the AI revolution, the loss of jobs, these are good, factory jobs, well-paying jobs that can keep you ahead of inflation. They're all going, they're disappearing. Chinese manufacturing has stolen a lot of jobs through cheap labor. They thought that, the Poles and the Serbs and the Yugoslavs and so on and so forth would be able to come over and do cheap labor as well, but you can't beat the Chinese at the cheap labor market. So you have all of these things pulling and tugging on society. We look at society as being, we just take it for granted, like so many things. Your phone, for example, as long as it's working, it is just a phone. But the minute it stops working, you become almost immediately aware of the thousands of intricate connections that have to take place that send your voice into that phone, through the air, and into somebody else's phone. And society is like that. That society is made up of lots of people doing small but essential tasks within that group. And you can have a certain number of people fall away from that group, but there is a critical point where there just is not enough people working towards the smooth running of society to keep it all going. And we're now moving into a period where people are totally self-absorbed in their electronics, in their computers, in the internet, in their phone, texting, goodness knows what else. They're totally absorbed about how they appear to other people outside of their Facebook page. And quite often there is a contradiction taking place here, where you can make your Facebook page perfect, no flaws whatsoever, and of course we're all so terribly flawed. And I mean, it's sad to say, isn't it, but there you go, we are all terribly flawed. And so there are people who are turning themselves inside out to make their real life persona mirror that Facebook persona. And so these are terribly difficult times, and a lot of these issues have their own agenda now. Okay, they're following their own agenda at their own speed, and I don't think that either of these people can stop what is going to happen. So Macron might find this a Pyrrhic victory, where he's won the presidency, but actually it ended him in a lot more hot water. And of course, we've yet to see about these emails that were dumped from WikiLeaks, the 9 gigabyte of emails. Now that the election is over, they can be raked over and sorted through, and it will be interesting to see what is in those emails. Early reports suggest that Macron does have offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, and usually these offshore accounts are used for hiding money. So it'll be interesting to find out where that money came from, how it got in the Cayman Islands, and what is the background of that story. So with Monsieur Emmanuel Macron, who is, by the way, the youngest French president ever elected, it's basically going to be business as usual. Okay, the globalist movement will move forward, and as I say, with all of these pressures that are on these systems right now, I just don't think there is any pulling this back. And as long as they continue to have all of these groups, the al-Nusra, Daesh, ISIS, IS, Al-Qaeda, all of these Western-backed rebels or terrorist groups, basically destroying all of these countries in North Africa, whether it be Egypt, Libya, Syria, Yemen, northern Iraq, and of course Turkey is getting involved in the bombing Syria, northern Syria. Wow, you're going to continue to have refugees. That's what's creating all of the refugees. So I think we're still not out of the woods by any stretch of the imagination, and this conversation is not over. And please do like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this video, and I encourage you to be part of the conversation. Please leave a comment, and let's open up the conversation. Okay, so this is Hound Dog Steve signing off with a brief wrap-up of the French election, and once again, Monsieur Emmanuel Macron for the En Marche party has won the presidency in the 2017 French presidential elections. Good night.